What is up, fight fans? This is DJC Combat, and next weekend goes down UFC 295 in the Garden, where now we have a bit of a change. You know, we're originally going to have Jon Jones versus Stipe headlining. Now the headliner is Jiri versus Pereira, which is a great main event, but we have a new heavyweight title fight interim, Aspinall versus Sergei, which arguably is kind of a better fight than Bones versus Stipe, because we got, two of the most talked about streaking contenders in their primes going at it, as opposed to, Jon Jones, the GOAT, taking on who allegedly could be a washed up fighter, former champion Stipe. It was more likely than not that Jon was just going to go out there and do his thing, and I was going to predict Jon Jones to win that fight. Whereas with this one, anything can happen. I mean, anything can happen in any fight, but with this fight, the outcome just feels a little less certain, which makes it that much more exciting. And of course, we got some other good fights on this card. We got Steamroller Frevola versus Saint Denis, Andrade versus Dern, and Diego Lopes versus Pat Sabatini. And I'm going to start with Matt Frevola versus Saint Denis, which kicks off the main card. This has fight of the night written all over it. Matt Steamroller Frevola, ever since getting smoked in the first round by Terrence McKinney, has completely reinvented himself and has now sort of found this newfound knockout power. I mean, this guy wasn't knocking people out before, and his last 3 wins have been by knockout, heavy-handed fighter. But Saint Denis is also good as well, good on the feet. He might hold an advantage on the ground, and that might want to be his best bet at winning this fight, is like getting a takedown. But I got to go with Matt Frevola, man. He's an absolute dog. I can't count him out. I mean, this dude literally destroyed Drew Dober in the first round. The first guy to crack his chin. I don't think Saint Denis is going to want to go up against that power. But if he can't get this fight to the ground, ultimately I kind of do see him getting overwhelmed in a scrap and getting knocked out. But it would not surprise me if Saint Denis were to get this fight done. He's undefeated. Well, not undefeated in the UFC. He has 1 loss in the UFC so far, but only 1 loss in his entire career. And he has a few good wins on his record as well, like Thiago Moises, Ishmael Bonfim. So he's a very formidable opponent, but I just can't help but favor Matt Frevola to win. Now moving up the card, we got Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern. Man, this one is a no-brainer. I have to go with Mackenzie Dern to win this. I just can't pick Dern. So I can't pick Jessica Andrade anymore. I can't trust her. I picked her to beat Aaron and Jan, and she looked absolutely horrible in almost every fight this year. 3-1 or 1-3, and 2023 is literally anything but her year. The last fight where she truly looked good was against a washed-up Lauren Murphy, who's a can, not very impressive. And then when she started fighting good fighters, we started seeing her lose. When she took on Aaron, got finished by Xiaonan, finished by Tatiana Suarez. Seemed like for each of those, she was just showing up for a losing paycheck, and she's kind of past her prime, whereas Mackenzie is in her prime, and I think she's hungrier right now. And her last fight against Angela, she looked so good, so dominant, and I just can't see it being any different in this matchup against Jessica Andrade. I think the sport has just kind of evolved past Jessica, and she just hasn't evolved with the sport, and you got to evolve or you're going to fall behind. And I just think, unfortunately for her, it's just a bad style matchup. I think Mackenzie Dern just has more ways to win this fight. I feel like on the feet, she can take Jessica Andrade. She can play that stand and bang game with Jessica. I don't see Andrade being able to overwhelm Dern with that pressure and power. I think Dern's durable enough to go up against the power of Andrade. She's got the toughness, but she also has power. I think her boxing is getting better, putting in that work with Jason Perillo. But then even on the ground, she holds such a huge advantage. 80cc BJJ world champion Jessica does not want to go to the ground with Mackenzie Dern. So she's got to worry about the striking and power of Dern, but she also has to worry about the ground game. Dern doesn't really have much to worry about. She just has to watch out for the hooks, because if they go to the ground, it's Dern all day. If it's on the feet, Andrade could do some damage, but ultimately I kind of feel like Dern's going to hold an advantage there as well. So Dern wins this fight by any method which possible, whether it be on the feet, whether it be with the hands or even the knees. I mean, she dropped Hill with a knee down the center, almost knocked her out with that. I mean, that's what Rose caught Jessica with. Dern could definitely land that. The opening is there all day. Or they could end up on the ground through a takedown from Dern or her pulling guard. She'll find a way to get this fight to the ground if she needs to. And if it gets to the ground, then it's Dern all day, and she'll get that sub. Andrade has been submitted twice this year. I can't see why Dern can't sub her. And that's what I'm going to predict. Mackenzie Dern by submission, second round, leg lock. That's the finish that I've always visualized when thinking about this fight. So that's going to be my prediction. And after this, man, Jessica's going to want to start maybe considering retirement, whereas Dern is going to be in talks of maybe being one fight away from a title shot. And I think they need to book her versus Tatiana Suarez. That always should have been the fight to make, but they're giving her Jessica Andrade, and I can't see how she wouldn't get this one done. Now, moving up the card, we got Diego Lopes versus Pat Sabatini. I gotta go with Diego Lopes to win this fight, man. Diego Lopes, I know that he doesn't have the UFC experience that Pat Sabatini does. And I know Pat Sabatini he is a solid fighter. Don't get me wrong. Never lost in the UFC before fighting Damon Jackson. And he's also good on the ground as well. I mean, 11 submissions to Diego Lopes' 12 submissions. So on the ground, this should actually be pretty competitive. I think it's going to be a very good fight, good test for Diego. But I got to go with Diego. I feel like he's just more talented. I feel like this is his fight to win. He's just impressed me more lately. I mean, look what he did to Gavin Tucker, the way he smoked him. And even though he did lose to Movsar Evloev, he gave a really good showing in that fight. Landed some good shots on the feet, had some near submission attempts, showing he belongs. And I feel like this is the caliber of competition that Diego's going to be able to beat at featherweight. So Diego Lopes is going to be my pick. Now, moving on to the co-main event of the evening, Sergei Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall. Man, this is going to be a crazy fight. This fight has been so difficult for me to predict to decide a winner, because this fight can literally end in one of two ways. Either we're going to see Tom go out there, have a Tom-like performance, finish, or Sergei go out there, have a Sergei-like performance and finish. But I've made up my mind, and I've decided that the one to go out there and do their thing is going to be Tom Aspinall. Because even though I do believe Sergei will be the most dangerous opponent in Aspinall's career, I just think Tom is the more talented fighter, and he has more ways to win this fight and more ways he can finish Sergei Pavlovich. Even though Sergei Pavlovich has a massive power advantage, and he's very good at cutting off the octagon, trapping him against the cage, and landing big, powerful combos, and he's got that John Jones wingspan, so it makes it hard to get away from his punches. I just think Aspinall, he has the better footwork, and he'll cut angles. He won't stand in front of Sergei Pavlovich, and I ultimately think he is the better striker. He's more technical, more dynamic, more fluid on the feet, and I see him outstriking Sergei Pavlovich, and he has the threat of being able to take this fight to the ground, where I believe on the ground, Aspinall is so much better, and he will dominate in that area. Not because that's an area where Sergei is lacking, per se, but that's just where Aspinall is so good. You know what I mean? Like, Volkov obviously has improved on the ground with defense off his back, getting up, defending takedowns. Aspinall had no problem going out there, ragdolling him and finishing him on the ground. And overall, he just made Volkov look like an absolute amateur, striking, grappling. And that win aged really well. And I mean, if you can do that to Volkov, I can't see why he couldn't do that to Sergei. So whereas he has to watch out for the power of Sergei, Sergei has to watch out for the overall striking of Tom, Tom's power, and the threat of the takedown. And watching this video, you might want to bring up the Curtis Blaydes fight, but Blaydes didn't shoot for a takedown until he was rocked. Aspinall is not going to do that, but I think Aspinall has better timing on his takedowns. He has a wider variety of different takedowns he can lean towards, not just a double leg. If they get in the clinch, he can trip Sergei Pavlovich off balance. You know, we usually don't see Blaydes go for upper body trips or upper body throws like that. It's mainly just the double legs. But Aspinall can time you coming in, overextending, or, you know, he can, you know, mask his takedowns behind his punching combinations. He's very good at using his striking to set up his takedowns, and I can see him doing that to Sergei Pavlovich. So he knows what he has to do to win this fight. He understands the assignment, and I think he's just going to find a way to get the job done. He's going to go out there and do what Aspinall does best, and I see him maybe getting a finish on the ground, potentially, whether it be a ground and pound or a submission. But I could absolutely be wrong about this one. I picked against Sergei in his last 3 fights when he fought, you know, Lewis, Ty, Blaydes. 2-3 of those picks were bad picks on my part, by the way. But who knows? I'm going to chance it again, and maybe Tom will be the one to prove me right against Sergei finally. But either way, man, I am super excited to see how this unfolds, who's going to come out the new champion interim. But honestly, the winner in my eyes is the heavyweight champion. And with all due respect to John Jones, I'm a John fan, but John is on his way out of the sport. He's going to retire soon after he beats Stipe, or Stipe wins. Same thing, he'll probably just end up retiring. So the winner of this fight is going to likely be promoted to undisputed and be champ anyway. But now, moving on to the main event of the evening, Jiri Prochazka, as Chael likes to call it, versus Alex Poatan Pereira. Man, we got this after Sergei versus Tom. We are in for a treat. This is going to be an insane fight. It's going to be a war, guaranteed. Both guys are absolute dogs. Pereira is an absolute G. And so is Jiri Prochazka, man, coming back after a year layoff and shoulder injury, taking on a dangerous guy like Pereira. But Jiri Prochazka is a savage like that. He does not care. And honestly, I think he's the type of guy to come back from a bad injury like that after 1 year and become a 2-time light heavyweight champion. That's my prediction. I think Jiri's going to win this fight. Initially, I had Alex winning this all the way. You know, I thought, okay, he's a much better, more technical striker, polished striker, Glory kickboxing 2-division champion with a left hook from hell. Jiri gets rocked every fight. It's only fitting that he's going to go out there and finally get his clock cleaned by Alex Pereira. It just makes sense, right? But lately, I've just been having this feeling, man, in my gut that Jiri's going to get it done. And it was the same thing with the last one. I almost picked Volk. That was my initial prediction for the rematch. But I had a feeling Islam was going to win. I could not ignore my gut, so I'm trusting my gut in this one. I just see Jiri having more of a dog in him than Alex Pereira. Because even though Jiri does get hurt in every fight, you know what I mean? Like, and Alex logically should, with his striking, be able to knock Jiri out. Jiri is that kind of fighter who just defies logic. And he's just a straight up madman. And I just don't see Alex being able to put Jiri away. I feel like he's going to hurt Jiri, but Yuri's going to be able to recover. I feel like Jiri, being the more well-rounded fighter, is going to be able to grab onto something when getting hurt, clinch Alex, go for a takedown, and recover like he did against Dominic Reyes. And then after some stalling, and after he recovers, that's when Yuri's going to get fueled, and he's just going to get more dangerous, and he's going to further amp up that pressure on Alex Pereira. And I don't think Alex is going to be able to handle Yuri's constant pressure and output. You know, Jiri never takes his foot off the gas, and I did notice in that Jan fight, whenever Jan was advancing forward, he was landing on, Alex Pereira. Yuri's going to land a whole lot more because he's going to keep going forward with relentless combos, and I don't see Alex being able to handle Jiri's power or have it in him to recover the way I think Jiri will be able to recover. I don't see him being able to, endure or rally from a Jiri Prochazka onslaught. I just don't see it happening. I think Jiri's going to show that toughness, that experience in this fight against Alex Pereira after some adversity. We saw against Glover, man. Glover had him in trouble. He was able to come back and get a finish late in the fight. And Alex Pereira is not as good as Glover Teixeira. Glover was a tougher fight and a more dangerous fight for Jiri than Alex was. So I think this fight is going to be a lot easier for Jiri. It won't be an easy fight, but easier than his last opponent. And I see Jiri going out there and looking even better than his last fight. Because even though Alex is a great, accomplished, kickboxer, he's not Glover Teixeira. There's no threat of a takedown. His pressure isn't the same as Glover. And he's just not as durable as Glover. So when Jiri starts landing and hurting Alex, which I feel like inevitably he will, I feel like that's where Jiri is going to be able to get the finish. I see this being a war that, goes at least 3 rounds, 4 rounds maybe, with it ending with a Jiri Prochazka finish. But I could easily be wrong, man. I could totally see Pereira going out there, destroying the legs of Jiri, taking away the spring in his step, and being able to catch Jiri with that patented left hook. It could very well happen. I just feel like Jiri's better, and he's a better opponent than Jan Blachowicz was, a more dangerous opponent than Jan was. For Alex, just because I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like Jan is sort of past his prime now, and it showed in that last fight. It showed in Jan's last few fights before the fight with Alex Pereira, where Jiri is in his prime. He's got something that Jan doesn't, which is youth. He's got the youth, athleticism. I think he's stronger than Jan was. I think he's more powerful than Jan was. Just overall more imposing and more dangerous, I feel. So we'll see what happens. But I got Jiri getting his belt back. But one thing I will say is that Pereira has good luck in MSG. He never loses in MSG. Every time he turns up in the Garden, he always wins. Maybe his luck will continue, but all luck runs out, good or bad. And his MSG luck might run out November 11th, but we shall see. I can't wait. Looking forward to this fight. But that's it for my breakdown and prediction for UFC 295, the main card. Let me know your picks in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe, and peace out.